one of the five things that Buddhists learn, they spend 5 years on is causality. And that's what I always teach. And people don't understand causality. And then that's how their thought process and their mental health just falls apart, is they can't tell the difference between a cause and an effect.
Okay. So this
You
is
don't have control
Mhm.
over effects, you have control over causes. So what he did was the cause, and the effect is he blew something up. Well, that cause was a bad cause. Yeah.
So this is going back to the first cause being God. Yeah.
Well, God is the first cause. Yeah. But the thing about modeling God, and again, cause and effect, is everybody goes, well, if you, because you think you know the first cause, you think you know how everything's going to happen. No, that's not, that's another abuse of causality. What I'm saying is the way to sort out everything in the world is to make sure it doesn't contradict the first cause. So if you get the first cause right, then when you talk about faith or love or peace, that definition can't be contradictory to the first cause. So that's what was revolutionary about modeling God.
Hmm.
And nobody has ever taken that approach in religion, but we take that approach in everything else we do. You know,
So
you go into a company and set up their mission and vision. Those
mhm.
are the first causes. And then everything that's not according to mission and vision, you go, you can't do that. How can you make that according to that? So that's why it's a tremendous testimony
Mhm.
against everybody in the world. And when I forgive everybody, I end up with all the karma and justice on everybody, especially if people talk badly about modeling God, because it's the only answer. And they're talking badly about the only answer, literally preventing others from finding that answer, which again comes to value and justice for me at their expense. So, yeah, it's pretty sweet.
So we're talking about being just and always being right. Yeah?
No, no,
No?
we're talking about measuring everything according to right and just. It's not the being of right and just that's a first cause. It's the concept of right and just. The concept of right and just exists regardless whether anything's right or just. And right and just are axioms. There's this, I'm trying to get on this person's podcast who's a philosopher. And
Hmm.
one of the first questions he asks is, what are your axioms? And
Oh,
an axiom is a causeless cause. So, what are your first principles? Where do you start with everything? And no matter what you say, I'm going to show that that's an effect, which is a cute little trick he does. So, what's your first cause? What's your axioms? What are you basing everything on?
okay. That's a deep question, isn't it? That's a very deep question. Because when you say
Yeah,
everything,
yeah.
I think it's partly linked to where we are, like what we're going through, what
But all of
conclusions
that
we
comes
reach.
from, those are
Yeah.
all effects, but how you approach it comes from a cause, and that comes from a cause. And so, what are your first cause or your axioms? Like this guy said something like, God created the heavens and the earth. Well, what's your definition of God? What's your definition of heaven? What's your definition of earth? Like, that can't be an axiom.
Maybe I don't quite understand the question. Like, if that's why I think it's really deep, because I'm like, what are we
Yeah.
actually asking here?
Yeah. Because what happens in philosophy is everything is built on something else. So, what's the first step? The first step you take in any process is essentially causeless. You're saying, I'm going to start with this.
Backward step,
And
the backward step.
all the way as far back as you can get.
So this
What's
is
your
going
backward
back in
step
your
that there's
history,
not a
huh?
previous, what's a backward step that's not a previous backward step?
Well, being born, I guess.
No,
How back can you get?
as it comes to your beliefs,
Yeah.
as it comes to your beliefs, what are you really basing everything off of?
Yeah, believe I always did say that actually, that a lot of stuff goes back to our beliefs because it's like that thought that we plant in our head that we then talk about, like we're doing here, which then leads to an action we take because we think that's really important to me. Yeah.
Right, but
And
it's
I
not
can
even the
see,
thought. It's not even a thought because a thought's just a fact. It's how do you process that thought? How do you judge if that thought's good and bad? How do you, so it's like that's really the axioms you start with. Like, what's the beginning of your belief system? Is what he asks. And like I said, I'm literally the only person in the world who can answer that question and in a non-contradictory fashion because of modeling God.
I guess, are we
So
going
that's
back
why I'm
to,
trying to get on this. I'm trying to get on this guy's podcast.
yeah.
Problem is a lot of people like this won't have me on their podcast because they don't want the guy to give the right answer, because then everybody after me will give the right answer.
So are we going back to, okay, I have a choice to make here based on this thought I'm having, and I need to decide whether this action I take is a good or a bad thing. Yeah? Are we going back to,
Right. So then you go before that. You go, wait, how are you judging whether something's good or bad?
so it goes
How do
back
you
to our
judging do you
definition?
what you know? Epistemology is how do we know what we know,
Mm-hmm.
and ontology is how do we know what exists? So what are the principles that go like how do you even know what you know? So you go back to that, then what's that based on? So yeah, it's like this goes all the way back.
So going back to what's good and what's bad, and then
Well, then you go back, what's your
what's
definition of good and
influence.
what's your definition of bad?
I think we covered what's good and what's bad. No, I don't think
Well, this is how I met Swore Up,
yeah, yeah.
because he
So we
actually
talked
had
about
a
good.
definition for evil that was he actually answered it. People don't even want to answer it. And then he answered it in non-contradictory fashion. I went, okay, this guy's a genius.
Let me see if I remember it, because I remember you and I just talked about evil, but I don't think I got the definition of good right at the time. But I remember that conversation. We said bad or evil, right, is something that results in destruction.
Right. Destroys. Something destroys.
Destroy, and good is something that leads to, say, more creativity,
Creation of something of value. Yeah. Creation of something of
something, so
value.
something of value that
Yep.
I guess the world needs. Could we leave it like that? Because I mean, I can create more of a bad thing, can't I, really?
Right.
And
But it's not a value. It's not a value.
so it goes back to our perception of what we think a value is. And if that
Right. So
value,
there's got to be something before that. That's what I'm saying is
yeah,
that's the game that philosophers play,
yeah.
and no one can get back to the axioms. I can get back to the axioms.
Okay, so let's get
So,
back to the axioms. You're not on this podcast. Let's do a trial. You're on this podcast, John. What's your definition of an axiom?
well, axiom is a causeless cause. Basically, axiom is your first principle that is self-evidently true. You don't need to prove it. And the axioms are right and just.
Okay.
The concept of right and the concept of just. Right um, measures things qualitatively, and
Mm-hmm.
just measures things quantitatively. So everything begins at right and just, and there is no cause of the concept of right. Whether something's right or not is measured by the principle of right. But what's the cause of right? There is no cause. Just like all of math is based on two things.
Mm-hmm.
This symbol represents this, number, this value,
Yeah.
and the equal sign. Everything on this side quantitatively is equal to that side. What's the cause of the equal sign? What's the cause of this symbol being a two? There is no cause. So we every day, every time someone uses math,
Mm-hmm.
they're testifying that there is a axiom that's qualitative and quantitative. And
Okay.
so to reject the same axiom in all of existence that mirrors it is hypocritical and
Yeah.
makes the person a hypocrite. So go ahead and tell me you don't agree with that.
It went over
Then you
my
better never use
head.
then you better never use math the rest of your life.
Over my head at one point. What I do know is, say, if you try and divide 1 by 3, like, what's the
No,
answer?
but one, but back to an axiom. One, what do you mean by one? What's one?
A whole unit.
What why is it called why is one a whole why does one represent a whole unit? What's the cause of that?
Oh, someone decided that we have either binary or we
There's
have.
no cause. There's no cause. It just was it's just someone decided, like you said, there's no cause to it.
So
It
it's
could
like
have just as
thinking.
very easily been something else. So that's an axiom. There's no cause to it.
So what we're saying is, if we name an object, that's an axiom, correct?
Yeah, unless there's a cause to it, unless you go, hey, because the object does this, and it does this behavior. So I come up with this, or like a portmanteau, where you create a word that is uh, merged into other words. But to just start from the very start is this symbol is a one, and it resembles a whole. Why? Why that symbol? Why not another symbol? It just is axiom. There's your axiom.
So I have a plate.
Here's
I have one plate, okay, and I smash it into two. The plate itself, we say that's one plate. I need to know if it's a half. I need to know. So there is a cause there, isn't there? There is a reason.
Well, there's a reason at that point. Yeah.
Yeah.
Once you do
I
that,
need to
there's a
know
reason.
if I need to know if I'm talking about one plate or I'm talking about half a plate, like whether I can eat off this. If
Right,
it's
but it all
three,
starts back at one.
mm,
And so everything you're saying is based on the concept of one, and that's fine. So there's a cause behind everything you're saying.
okay.
But the original cause, there's no cause behind it. Why is that an equal sign? Why couldn't it have been a different sign? There's no cause to that.
Okay, so it's understanding so that people have a common language to go, okay, that means that. Like when you and Jason talk and you come up with a term between you and then you explain it and then you're like, watch this, because if Jason and I talk, like we want to mention this word, we want you guys to know what we're talking about. So is that an
Mhm.
accent you're doing?
No, because we gave a reason why.
Okay,
You
so
know, and
yeah,
we gave a reason why it didn't start. This axiom starts way before all of that. The axiom would be what's the word made up of? Letters. Why is this letter
yeah.
this? Why does this an R look like that? Why? Axiom. Someone decided. And
Common
could have just
common
be
language.
easily been something else. And
Yeah, common language based on people being able to communicate and understand something is what I would put all that down to. Like
no,
going
but
back to
it you're
hieroglyphics,
not. Yeah,
yeah?
you're not going back far enough. And this is why I said is the world is effect to cause. I go cause to effect. So that's why I go all the way to axiom, and no people don't get that far back in causes.
Okay, so I want to go back to
You're still
hieroglyphics.
talking
Yeah,
about an effect.
yeah,
You're
I know.
still
Okay.
talking about effect.
Yeah, I
Okay,
want to
go on.
drill down to one less iteration. The hieroglyphics, for instance, and the caves when we started drawing, it was like, okay, be careful, like there's a bear over there, right? That's giving people a reason, isn't it?
Um, yeah, that's still not an axiom. That's still an effect of a cause.
Okay. So an axiom is something that's causeless.
Yep.
Okay. And so
You
what do
can't
you
say the
call?
thing before it. So whatever you say, if I say, well, here was the cause of that, that's not an axiom.
So are we talking about a uniqueness then?
Our uniqueness is an axiom in a sense because it's like, why is it that? Why isn't it something else? I don't know. Yeah, your uniqueness becomes your first cause as a person, as an entity. Yeah, your
Okay.
uniqueness would be an axiom.
Okay. So an axiom would go back to uniqueness. So my reason for doing everything is because of my unconscious
No, it's because
brain.
of your uniqueness.
Well, isn't the source of all our energy in our unconscious brain?
Yeah, that's the energy.
And isn't that
But
what I'm going to do naturally because of my
so you're
unique?
not going back far enough.
No, I'm not going back.
Why does your unconscious brain, why does your unconscious brain have you be attracted to this guy, but not that guy?
Well, I was going back
Why
to
does your
being a
unconscious
baby.
give you, why does your unconscious give you energy in this situation and not that situation? Because something in your past, you trained your unconscious to do that. So your unconscious is not an axiom. Your unconscious only works in response. It
Okay.
is truly, it's never a cause, and it's always an effect or in response.